This podcast is a quest for well-being, a quest for a meaningful life through the exploration of fundamental truth. Enlightening ideas, insights on physical, mental, and spiritual health. The inspiration is love. The aspiration is to awaken new ways of thinking that can lead us to a new way of being well. Welcome to Body, Mind, and Soul Healing Conversations.
We all have challenges from which to learn and grow. We all experience painful endings so that new beginnings can occur. We all overcome fears so we can become masters of our own destiny. And we all heal, release, and surrender to make room for the new to enter. This is the process which enables us to align and lead. We must become individuals fully aware of our interconnectedness, potential, and power. Valeria Teles interviews Claire Atyeo, a female empowerment coach and shamanic practitioner and speaker. Claire Atyeo's motivation is to inspire and guide women to create realistic, actionable solutions to life's problems and challenges. She supports women globally to reacquaint themselves with their true essence, realign and rebalance their energies to become unstoppable in their passions, goals, and life desires. As a certified life coach, Reiki Master, shamanic practitioner, EFT, inner child, and Ho'oponopono practitioner, she has many tools with which to assist. Spiritually based, she may be, but gentle persistence is a strength, a power, and a much underestimated force. Claire believes that once women step into their goddess self, unapologetically en masse, the world will once again restore to balance. Her mission is to work with women, mostly lightworks and empaths, to gain confidence and embrace their gifts so collectively they can awaken humanity from its sleeping state. Meet Claire at claireatyeo.com. Here is the interview with Claire Atyeo.
In your own words, who is Claire Atyeo?
I'm an ordinary woman that is walking a spiritual path and living my life on purpose. And whilst doing so, bringing light or working towards bringing greater light towards the planet and humanity and helping others to kind of walk in that same footsteps.
I have a question. You just mentioned purpose, living on purpose. How did you find your purpose?
Oh, through lots of what I always call tower moments. It's been it started as a healing process. I'd had a lot of disastrous relationships. I was running codependency within relationships, even though I was a very independent, capable woman within every other aspect of my life. When I entered into a romantic relationship, I handed myself over. And obviously, because I wasn't honoring myself, each one of them was disastrous and it escalated. It was my lessons. And my stepping onto the spiritual path started with healing my hurts, my wounds, my sorrows, my woes, my poor me's, why me's. And it was through that healing that I opened up to my own divinity and spirituality. My spirituality had always been there. Things had always been happening all the way through my life, even in childhood. I have memories of occurrences of seeing spirit, talking with spirit, feeling different from everybody else. But I didn't really open up to it fully until I started when I stepped onto that healing journey that led me onto my spiritual pathway.
And that's interesting the way you say that, because that's how it usually happens. We lose ourselves in that sense, which seems to happen at a very early age. The feeling of separation, right, Claire?
Mm-hmm.
That we are not connected to wholeness, to what life really is. And then we just try to find ourselves again, and we keep losing ourselves or getting ourselves in trouble. That was my case too. And then we just find healing, and then from healing, spirituality, and then we go back, return to wholeness. Or maybe we cannot return to wholeness because we never left that space. So that's kind of an interesting paradox, right?
Yeah, it's a reconnection more so than a returning. I think society is structured in such a way, this is my belief, that society is structured in such a way it actually takes us away from ourselves. It tries to compartmentalize who we are. So we're told from a very young age, we're either girl or boy, and what the expectations of that are. Then when we start school and college, we have other expectations. And then obviously when we go into adult life, there's still further expectations. And in all of that process, we're not encouraged to actually tap into our own unique creativity, our own source of being.
Talk to me for a moment about empath and highly sensitive people. There's the same kind of personality traits or way of being, or they're different?
There are similarities. The list is enormous, but it's basically empath for me. Even though there are a list of traits, you're able to not only feel into the energies of yourself, but you feel into the energies of other people, and you can, when you're unaware that you're an empath, absorb those and make those your own without actually realizing it, which is why a lot of empaths really struggle before they fully understand their capabilities, because their physical body, their energetic body is full of 20, 30, 40 different people. And so there's confusion there as to what's them and what's not. And it can cause untold sorrows and kind of send you down dead ends, and you wonder, why me, what's happening? And it's really quite, it's almost like you have kind of a personality disorder, because one minute you're happy, the next minute you're sad, because you're taking on the energies of other people. So if you're walking down a street, one person can be really, really happy. You feel that, you absorb that. So your energies soar. And then you walk past another person and they're going through a really difficult, challenging time in life, and their energy levels are really, really low. So then yours completely deplete as well. You mirror them, you mirror people and their energy, their frequencies, and until you actually understand yourself and how to regulate that, how to put boundaries in place so that doesn't actually happen. Being an empath is an absolute gift, but not before you actually learn that you are empath and you learn those boundaries. It can be quite challenging. Let's put it that way.
Is everything energy, Claire? Absolutely everything?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. My belief is yes. And science is slowly really coming to terms with that now. Einstein wrote about it many, many years ago, but it's only within the last 20, 30 years that the scientists have really started to take a hold of that now and really start to understand it in a much more complex way.
Right. That really resonates to me, that everything is unlimited energy, infinite, unruled, which means it can do anything, right? Become anything and transform into anything. It kind of surprised me that because we are energy and we become so solid when it comes to personality. So it kind of makes sense when you say that empath, they take on energies of their surroundings and other people. That sounds natural to me, in a way, to be open and sensitive enough to just flow with life and kind of become the moment, not actually be in the moment, but become the moment. So in that sense, it kind of trying to control that, which is not controlling, right, Claire?
It's not about the controlling, and it's not about the thing is with empaths is it goes far deeper than that, because you can walk past somebody and they have a terminal illness or they're in pain, and you actually feel that, and you can actually take on. So if somebody has arthritis in their hip, for instance, you can actually take that on and start limping. You actually feel it. You have that pain. So it goes much, much deeper than just taking on their energies. You can actually start to take on people's symptoms as well, which is where it starts to get complex and challenging.
Is that something that is at the level of the mind, emotions at the psychological level, or this is the body, the physical body take on this energy unconsciously?
I actually think neither. I think it's at a soul level.
Oh, there's a different level.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I take it. My belief and my understanding is that it's a soul level. Empaths are souls that have had many, many lives and undergone many, many learnings. And when they reincarnate into this physical world again, they actually bring those learnings, that knowledge, that understanding with them so that they can actually assist humanity.
Is that something that can be experienced, Claire, or is just it becomes a belief system, a knowing, a trust type of thing?
It's an inner trust. There've been so many times where I have picked up information, I have picked up diagnosis, obviously we're not medical, we don't treat it as a medical ability in any way, shape or form, we don't give medical advice. Right. But I have been with clients and I have been able to feel into their energies, and I've actually not had any history from them. And I've said to them, look, this is what I'm feeling. Can you take that? Does that make sense? And they will say, yes, absolutely. Mm. Is it something is measurable at the moment? In mainstream science, no. If you believe some of the articles that come out about some of the studies that the CIA are doing and have been doing since the 60s with telepathy and psychic information, then I'm sure there is proof, there is science. Mm. Research studies that show this, but in mainstream, no, we don't have that yet.
It also resonates to me. It's very clear at the intellectual level that once we merge back or reconnect, as you said earlier, to the wholeness, to life itself, then everything is possible.
Yeah.
Because now we are back to being life itself. We are not just a concept. We are not identifying with the personality.
Yeah. Yeah, we're infinite beings. Everything on this planet, humanity included, is a sentient being. Mm. And I think this is what we need to get back to, is that reciprocal energy. If we take, we need to give. And a lot of the issues that are going on in the world and a lot of the challenges that humanity are experiencing at the moment we have created them because we have not had the respect for the planet and the fact that the planet is a sentient being.
So once we go back to wholeness or reconnect, then it's so much easier to see that and to live in such a way because everything's connected. We're not disconnected. That has been always the case, right, Claire? But we are unconscious about it. We have not realized that. It's not even an intellectual understanding. We can understand it at the rational level, but it's a realization, isn't it? A recognition of that.
Well, I think the biggest issue was, if you look back through history, you had the indigenous tribes that understood this. They understood this equilibrium that was needed. But of course, as we moved into the modern age, as we moved into the technical age, and in the industrial age, we decided to go down the path of science needed to be research-based. It needed to be provable. And anything that couldn't be proven was kind of rested on the shelf. It was never explored anymore. And it was belittled in a lot of ways. And yet we continue through. Every single culture has old wives' tales, information that's passed down from generation to generation. And the problem is because it wasn't promoted. It was actually repressed in a lot of countries and within a lot of religions. The reasoning of that information was lost.
Yeah, so we definitely lost touch with intuition, with the invisible world, and then it became very rational. If I can't see it, then it's not real. And that's interesting because I see the human being as real and unreal at the same time. That's what we are. But most of us don't realize that.
And yet it's one of those situations because that's absolutely, that is how we have all, that is a culture we live in. If we can't see it, it's not real. And yet we have all come from one religion or another where we're to believe in a God that we can't see.
Right. Yes, some of us have not actually. Interesting. I talked to some people who have been brought up as agnostic or atheists. Yeah, they don't really have any concepts or ideas about the invisible world.
Yeah, so they're at their natural preset, as we're all born. We're all born with that natural preset. It's the programs that are actually delivered to us throughout life that changes that.
You wrote the book, Aligned Leaders, that will be released on October 8th. So talk to me about the main inspiration and intention of writing your book, Claire.
Okay, like many people, I've made attempts on several books. I've got a couple on the go now that I haven't actually completed yet.
Yeah.
This book, Aligned Leaders, just sung to me. It was, and for the one reason, its title was, the whole title is called Aligned Leaders, but then it's called Sage Wisdoms from Women Who Choose Their Soul Mission Over Societal Expectations. And as soon as I heard that, I knew I had to be part of it. It's a multi-author book, and I just knew that I needed my voice within that, because that is the type of work that I'm actually working with, the type of women that I work with, the type of women that I help, that I assist, so that they can step away from those societal expectations and actually become introspective and look into what they want from their lives.
And speaking of that, so you are a female empowerment coach and shamanic practitioner. So talk to me about shamanic healing work. How does it work, Claire? How did you discover it and how does it work?
Well, for me, my shamanism came back into when I was doing lots of other modalities, and I had two clients in particular that the modalities I was using were proving extremely difficult. We weren't able to shift them through the blocks, and I meditated on it and I connected with my guides. And what was given to me was soul retrieval, and I'd never heard of it before. So I started looking, as we all do when we don't know something, we Google it. And it came up as a shamanic modality. And that is what inspired me to kind of walk the shamanic path then, because I needed to, and the belief of the soul retrieval is that when we undergo in traditional shamanic and indigenous cultures, what would happen is if a person underwent a trauma, within 48 hours, they would perform this ceremony to re-invite the soul. Because what happens is in the trauma, the soul is like, whoa, I can't cope with this. And it kind of takes itself off. And so you perform this ceremony to invite that part of the soul that took itself out of this traumatic situation because it couldn't cope with it back into the body.
I have interviewed some guests about that. That was new to me back then. That's such an interesting idea.
And it's very... How many times have you heard somebody say, I don't feel whole?
Yeah, right. I used to say that.
And very often it's because these aspects, these traumas, and it doesn't have to be trauma as we think of it in a massive car accident or abuse. Traumas is a perception of a person's within their own psychology of what's going on. So a child can be traumatized just by having a telling off from their mother, but if they're super sensitive, that will be traumatic for them.
That's another interesting perspective on that. So we are actually traumatizing our own selves in a way by the perceptions we have about the world, ourselves, others, and the world, and life itself.
Absolutely. When we have an emotional reaction to any given situation, that emotion that we feel lasts for 90 seconds, no more. Everything else comes from our own psyche. We create a story, a scenario that it's a snowball effect.
Wow, Claire, that is so true. I have to say like 1,000 times to that. I'm thinking here about all the times that I have perceived the world through my own psychological lens, and that was exactly the case, the storytelling. Is that possible to drop that, the storytelling, and navigate this reality like a tree, as natural as possible, just being? I mean, we still do, but more the foundation being the being. Is that possible?
Absolutely, yes. But it takes commitment. It takes perseverance. It takes the commitment, because when you start a healing journey, it's not, yes, okay, you know, if you're in your 30s and your 40s and you've accumulated traumas from divorce or from family members passing and the life occurrences, as it were, those bigger aspects, you heal predominantly and clear those. But once you start a healing journey, you never stop, because there's always something else. There's always what I always call tentacles of an octopus. It kind of filter out, and even though you take the main body, you still have those tentacles, and you have the layers as well. So you can take it to greater depths.
So that's interesting the way you're saying that. Basically, being takes actually doing. So it takes work, it takes effort, practices. And then the healing journey has no end either. It's an ongoing process, going deeper and deeper. So I wonder, what is to be free? Can we ever be free in a human body? Free from practices?
Yeah, I believe so. I believe, again, it comes down to perception. What is free? What is free for you will be very different from what is free from me.
Yeah, what is freedom to you? What would that be?
Freedom for me is to feel that I am able to direct my life. I have the ability to follow my passions, my purpose, that I am able to be of service without constraint. And as I said, freedom for everybody will look very different, because depending on their circumstances, depending on their culture and their social standing and the type of life that they've had thus far, because you ask somebody that has nothing what freedom would look like for them will be very different from somebody who has had everything.
I love what you wrote. I think one of the articles you sent me, you said, I believe that once women step into their godness self unapologetically, en masse, the world will once again restore to balance. This is a very interesting statement. So I wonder if the world of this reality was balanced. Did that occur in history at some point, Claire?
It's interesting, isn't it? Because I've been meditating on this a huge amount, because there's been so much information coming in for me. And I believe so, yes. I believe that, and even when you go back to the Adam and Eve story, Eve gets blamed for tempting Adam. And it's interesting, because I've always kind of thought, okay, so why have women been depicted as the culprit, basically. And the information that I've been getting through from the meditations that I'm actually doing is one thing that came out, and I'm still doing some research on it, was that it was very much to do with the love and the inability, love and attachment. And this is what I've been getting, and I'm still doing more research and I'm still doing more meditation, but it was that having that deep, deep love and then not being able to let go when it was time to let go. And so that attachment created an imbalance.
That resonates. But the feminine aspect is not a domain of only the female, let's say, body, biology. It's also, we have everything, right, Claire? We have the divine masculine and feminine.
Exactly, yes.
So it's kind of creating that balance within ourselves that will create the balance outside of ourselves.
What my intention from that statement is that women have always been the doers more so, and men have kind of followed. If you look at the story of Adam and Eve, it was Eve that gave him the apple and told him to bite, and he bit. So and if women actually rebalance themselves where they are both masculine and feminine, that will actually draw the masculine back down. If you look at it, is that if you imagine it's in a line, so at one end you have the feminine, at the other end you have the masculine, and then in the middle you have the divine feminine and the divine masculine together. And what we need to do is to get women to really step in and take ownership of their femininity and to take ownership of their masculinity, where they can be assertive, where they can actually say what they need, where they're not being subservient. That will keep bringing them down into that center balance point. And what will happen is men will mirror them and also join us.
In your book, you said something that caught my attention. On self-love. You say, my journey has been focused on the search for love. At first, I thought it was as simple as seeking the perfect partner, then learning to love unconditionally. When that failed and I still felt unfulfilled, I finally turned my attention to learning and practicing self-love. So talk to me about the power of accepting and loving ourselves.
It's unprecedented. It's absolutely unprecedented. It has opened me to so many more exterior experiences, but interiorly, it's opened me to dreams, hopes, wishes, desires that I'd forgotten them. Childhood memories come up. It's almost like a bucket list.
Yeah.
It sounds ridiculous, but it's almost like a bucket list. It's kind of got put away, put in the drawer and forgotten. And then all of a sudden, as soon as you start really stepping into practicing self-love, it's like it all comes out again and you're like, wow. And it's such a wonderful, magical playground. And the biggest learning for me is the moment I stepped into loving myself, respecting myself, honoring myself, having that self-worth, having that self-value. Instantly, the people around me, their whole attitude was completely different. I no longer had to ask for things. People would just come forward with them because I was giving that energy of these are my boundaries. And whether people realize what's going on a conscious or a subconscious level, what it's actually doing is you're giving off a very different frequency, a very different energy. And again, people will match that. They'll say, I'm not going to get away with that behavior anymore, so I need to change.
Wow, it's a challenge for us to really embody that, right? Because of fear, isn't it, Claire?
Exactly. How we're going to be perceived, what it's actually going to mean. A lot of women are really scared that it's going to change them. It's going to take away that compassion, that loving, that nurturing, which is innately the divine feminine traits. It doesn't change that at all. In fact, what it actually does is increase it, because you're not giving from a half-empty cup.
Right.
You're giving the overflow. You fill yourself up first, and then you give the excess unconditionally. And that's beautiful, because how many times I know in the past that I did it, and I guarantee that there isn't a single person on this planet that has given or done something for somebody else, but then they're kind of like, oh, really, have I got to do that? It's that grudge, that not really wanting to do it, but feeling that you have to do it. But when you fill yourself up, when you make you the priority first, that goes away, and you are much, because you don't have a sense of lack. You don't feel you have to hold on to anything, so you can give freely, continuously, because you're giving the excess of you.
Yes, you're flowing now.
Flowing, it's beautiful. It's so you don't change as a woman. You don't change. You don't lose anything. In fact, you gain so much.
Yeah, enough to give. Yeah, to continuously give.
To continuously give. Yeah,
I agree 1,000,000,000%. Obviously, this is something that to me it's sacred. The self-love, but without the self, like if we are able to merge back to life itself, then that love naturally arises for oneself, for the body itself, and then, for life and everything in it. It's just this really wonderful kind of happening.
It is, yes.
When it really authentically happens. And I love the way you say in your book, the passage in your book says, I have become a ballerina within the harmonic symphony of love. I am both the being and the doing, and it is magical. Magical it is. Speaking of energy and all these, it is magic.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
It is clear. I love that. Thank you for being you. For doing the work and sharing you with the world, with us, this inspiration. We need the reminder too. It's interesting. We need to be reminded. Because
it's not just me. It's everyone on this planet that has that capacity.
And we do. We need to be activated. We need the activation. So we're almost at the end, and I have so many other questions for you. Another topic I would love to talk to you briefly about, it's the concept of love and above that you speak about in your website, and also the frequency of love. So you have been talking about that frequency of love, but talk to me about the love and above.
Okay, so within the awakening community, the spiritual community, everybody talks about love and above. And what I've done is it's a beautiful frequency to be at. It stems from the levels of consciousness that Dr. David Hawkins studied and wrote about in much detail, mapping the human consciousness, and basically kind of following on from Carl Jung, the connection between the mind, body, and soul. Our spirituality, us being spiritual beings, and how that actually kind of manifests itself. That's a bit of a tongue twister.
Yes, yeah.
Within the physical realm. And what I wanted to look at was that foundation of the frequencies, where we're at. Where are your frequencies at? Because I found in my own life that when I hadn't done the healing, when I was running all these programs that were keeping me in a sense of lack, in a sense of fear, life was difficult. It was very precarious. One minute I was up, the next minute I was down, and I wanted to, because having now kind of ascended that scale and got my vibrations higher, apart from the spiritual aspects, which is a whole nother subject, because we're moving dimensions as well. But I just wanted to look at the physicalities of it. And obviously, the higher your vibration, the greater foundation you have to actually build your life. And as I was looking at this, and anybody who is aware, and you can actually go and look at this, you know, the drawing, the map of the consciousness, it's called the Omega consciousness scale, and it's actually drawn in a cone-shaped triangle, a downward pointing triangle. So the higher your frequency, the emotion that you are able to sustain most naturally, the majority of the time, obviously we all fluctuate, will be your basis, will be your platform for actually constructing your life on. And hence, that's why we strive for love and above, so that we have that bigger platform, so we're able to sustain life in a way that flows and is productive and is positive for everybody that is within our circles.
I remember thinking about the idea of freedom and liberation that doesn't require practices, but the physical body requires so many practices, eating, brushing the teeth, shower. So that would make sense that to raise vibration, to sustain vibration, it takes practices.
Yeah, it does. It takes commitment. It takes commitment to say, okay, this is where I'm at, that's where I want to go. And how am I going to get there? It's the emotional body's gym, the same as everybody's accustomed now to thinking about, you know, the brain gym, you know, with their psychology and moving themselves. This is the emotional equivalent. That's emotionally take ourselves to the gym and really tweak what needs to be tweaked so that we can have a rich and fulfilling life, because there is no lack. It's just our perception of lack. It's the way we're viewing the world, the way we've been taught to view the world.
Yeah, so it's the practice of unlearning, deprogramming. Which is wow, it is a challenging one to do. It's almost an impossible one to do. But yeah, the commitment part, that really makes a huge difference once we commit to that with no doubts, and that changes everything.
Yeah. And it's commitment to self. Again, it comes back to that self-love. So it's all tied in together, because with self-love, we start looking at our diet. We start looking at what we consume, whether we're consuming alcohol, whether we smoke, everything. When you start bringing in that self-love, you will start to look at absolutely every aspect of your life.
So true. And it seems to be like a practice for the rest of our existence, right? In the human body. It's there's no ending, there's no end for that practice, that exercise.
Which makes it sound really awful, but it's the most beautiful. It's like eating. Once you actually get used to it, it's like getting up and having breakfast. It's like I get up in the morning and I do my mantra, and I actually do a meditation in the shower. I do, you know, very often my day is structured in such a way I don't have time to sit and meditate for an hour. So I will meditate in the shower. When you're doing, there are many ways, but it becomes a habit, but a habit that serves me.
I do have a few more questions for you, but before I ask them those ending questions, something caught my attention. You spoke of 12 chakras instead of 7, right? It's the number that we are used to here. So talk to me about that.
Okay, well, the 12 chakra system is not something new in the spiritual world. Many people know about the 7 because yoga has become it's mainstream. So and in yoga, most yogas use the 7 chakras, which is why most people are familiar with those. The 7 chakras all live within the physical body. The 12 chakra system takes into account the psychic body and the spiritual body, which are two different. So we have these aspects of ourselves. So we always say the mind, body, and soul. And these encapsulate that. So we have that we know of at the moment. I believe there are more, but I haven't yet been shown what they are. But we have one that people will be familiar with and don't actually think of as a chakra. Is we have the earth chakra that sits under our feet. Many people who practice yoga and practice meditation understand the need for grounding themselves, and so we have the earth star chakra, which is the ninth chakra, that sits 30 centimeters below our feet. We also have a universal heart that sits above the crown, and a soul star, and this stellar gateway, but all that sit above the head. And it's a stellar gateway chakra that we actually build a bridge to divine, to a source. And what we actually do is, and every time we meditate, we lay another fiber of that bridge. So if you think about when you're building muscle, you're building the fibers of that muscle. Every time you meditate, you're laying another layer, a fibrous layer to divine, which is absolutely beautiful, because obviously the stronger your bridge, the more information you can receive. The more information can pass over that bridge. So, and then we have, now this is the one that is always contentious, because some people say it's out of us. I believe it's in us. But we have the cosmic heart chakra that sits in between the throat chakra. My belief is it sits in between the throat chakra and the heart chakra. So on that breastplate, and that is our connection. That is our collective connection to each other, to the cosmos. And that is where we really expand the love experience of the I am, we are.
Talk to me for a moment about your services, Claire. I know you're a coach, Reiki, the retreats. I love the retreats, though, too. Yeah, talk to me about them.
So many things on the go. It sounds yes. I give the option for people. I do Reiki, chakra balancing through the Reiki. What I like to do. I mean, some people just say, okay, I want a Reiki session, and so I've given them the option within the system, so they can just book a Reiki session. But what I found I needed, and one of the things that I wanted to bring into my own practice was, when I was on my healing journey, I was very much aware that I also needed coaching. But the problem was there was not a program that incorporated the two. And because I was in such a bad way, obviously I had that sense of lack. So I was bringing more lack into my life. So I never had the financial capability to pay for healing and for coaching. So what I wanted to do was create programs that incorporated the two. So I offer healing modalities separately within the clinic, but I also offer 3 packages of 3 program packages. The first one is one-on-one coaching, which includes healing. The second one is a 4-day intensive course. Can either be taken online or as a retreat when COVID permits us. And the third one is the academy, where people can go in as in when they have time. And so I offer those, and each of those, all those 3 packages include coaching and healing, because that was something that was desperately important to me. As I said, when you feel that lack, you attract more lack. So it ends up being that vicious karmic cycle that's very difficult to kind of break free from.
Do you offer services online, one-on-one, in person, and online, right, Claire? Okay, that's great to know. And where can we find more information about you, your services, your books, products, and future projects?
Right. Everything is on the website, claireatyeo.com. Or if you want to just kind of check in and see what I'm up to, because I do webinars and live talks, and I'm doing a collaboration with a fellow spiritual warrior at the moment. You can find me on Facebook, and the groups are from that, and that's claireatyeo.athena. And obviously I've got Instagram, which is the same, claire@atyeo.athena.
Thank you so much, Claire. And before we say goodbye, I have my last question to you, the final question. I had so many of them, actually, but I'll ask you one. What is another word for life?
Another word for life, blessing.
Thank you so much again for your presence, for your wisdom, timeless wisdom, the work you do, how you do it, and everything in between that could be felt. Thank you, Claire.
Thank you.
Take good care. We'll talk soon. Bye for now.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening. To learn more about Claire Atyeo and her work, please visit claireatyeo.com.
To learn more about this podcast, please visit fitforjoy.org/podcast. Thank you again for listening, and bye for now.